afternoon. You're watching Business World Live here on One News. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Monday. All right, local shares finally saw an uptick today as the country has finally started to roll out donated Sinovac shots this morning. The main index advanced by 1.15% to 6,872.97. That stretches the gauge's gain to 2 straight days here. Earlier in the day, a number of government officials and medical frontliners have been inoculated in key hospitals. That includes the Philippine General Hospital, as well as the Lung Center of the Philippines, Jose Rodriguez, Veterans, PNP General Hospital, and even V. Luna Medical Center. The rollout comes as the Philippines is seeing a resurgence in infections, its highest yet in 4 months. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez, who also received the Sinovac jab earlier, said there is no such thing as the best vaccine, and that the best shot is the one that is safe and effective and arrives early. This, of course, is half of the adult population remains apprehensive to actually get inoculated, more so with China-made shots based on the latest survey released by the Octa Research Group. But the commencement of vaccination program is enough to actually spur a positive reaction in the markets here. That's according to Japhet Tanchanko of Phil Stocks. He says that with the shots here, hope runs high that easing restrictions might actually be considered. And true enough, you have President Duterte just yesterday during the arrival of the vaccines said that he's considering loosening quarantine restrictions once the country gets to actually secure 2 million vaccines and once the provinces actually get to receive their stock. Now, according to Galvez, the country is expecting a million doses more from Sinovac this month, as well as some 3.5 million from the COVAX facility. That includes the delayed vaccines from AstraZeneca. He says deals from Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are also being finalized. The palace also says that Sinopharm has applied for emergency use application, but the FDA says they have yet to receive any filing. But even before that happens, travel rules have already been softened, with the national government leaving it up to LGUs if travelers will be required to undergo COVID-19 testing and the required 14-day isolation period. That sent a number of travel-related stocks climbing here, especially with our airlines here. It could not be any more evident than how PAL actually performed today. The flag carrier soared 11.4%. It's now priced at 6 pesos and 74 centavos. That actually dwarfs Cebu Pacific's close to 0.8% climb today. The budget carrier is now at 45 pesos and 20 centavos a piece. We'll discuss more about the easing of restrictions as well as a vaccine rollout with our guest later, Ateneo Economics Professor Alvin Ang. But for now, let's do one quick earnings report. This time from power distributor Meralco. Earlier in the day, the stock rose 5 7/10% ahead of those earnings figures, but pared back those gains to just 1 1/10%. Profit came in after close. Net income for full year 2020 was lower by 20% to just 16.3 billion pesos, worse than Bloomberg analyst estimates of a 17% drop. As you can see as well in this chart, you'd see we still don't have a complete picture of how they fared in 2020 to actually make a comparative analysis as to how they fared in 2019. But revenue at least came in at 275.3 billion pesos, with a core net income also experiencing a bit of a drop here to just 21.71 billion pesos in full year 2020 compared to 23.83 billion pesos in 2019. For the last quarter, though, net income improved by 1.9%, but revenue is still down by 21%. We also have this bit of news as they release their earnings. You have Meralco saying that the distributor has offered to actually buy as well Shell's stake in Malampaya. We'll try to get more details on that as they come along. But before those strands came in, Meralco ended the day at 274 apiece, again on the upside by as much as 1 1/10%. Let's see how the worse than expected earnings report will affect the stock's performance tomorrow morning. Now, here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Government borrowings more than doubled to 2.7 trillion pesos last year on the back of COVID-19 related loans. The Bureau of Treasury said state borrowings in 2020 were 168% higher than the 1 trillion peso total debt recorded in 2019. The figure also closely matched the debt incurred from 2017 to 2019 at 2.76 trillion pesos. The Treasury repaid over half a trillion pesos in loans extended by the central bank in December, but borrowed the same amount later that month to help finance the government's pandemic response. Net borrowings reached 2.5 trillion pesos last year. This is still 185% higher than 2019 figures. Now, cryptocurrency transactions are expected to soar further this year after a five-fold increase in 2020. The Banco Central says that's mainly due to the surge in the price of Bitcoin and broadening regulations. The BSP told the Philippine Star that they are also anticipating a continued increase in the adoption of virtual currencies in payments and remittances and other financial services. Recall that the Monetary Board recently approved the application of 7 virtual currency exchanges. This brought the total number of BCEs operating in the country to 17. All right, it has been said time and again on this show that much of the country's economic recovery hinges on the rollout of vaccines. And now that it has begun, will the country's economy finally be resuscitated? To talk about that, we have Ateneo Economics Professor Dr. Alvin Ang. Professor Ang, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yes, and to your those who are watching this broadcast right now.
All right, let's get right to it, sir. Inoculation already commenced. Is this a clear-cut sign that the country should be on its way to recovery, or how much of an uphill battle is it going to still be?
Well, the start is a good it's a good way to do things, but we still need to know the sustainability of this. And as we are saying, as talking right now, and we have heard the news, people are the government still trying to get or make sure that there is enough supply of vaccine, because there's really like a shortage all over the world at this point. And also in part of our analysis at the economics department research center, what we're trying to say is that the vaccine alone is not the cure all for all of this. We still need to perfect the protocols of test, trace, and isolating, because up to today, I think the reason why we are having challenges of increasing infections once again is that we don't have a common way of doing these things. So we have to do better here, while the vaccine, the rollout will take at least until the next year. You cannot finish it until the end of this year, so you will really have to do it parallel to each other, because that's really the way to bring back the confidence. Because even if some people are inoculated and some people don't care and will not do the protocols, then we are certainly still unable to bring back the confidence of people and firms to go out there and really do business.
Good thing that you mentioned that it's not just about the procurement or even the rollout of vaccines, but
Mm.
so much still has to be done when it comes to testing and contact tracing. That's
Mm.
very interesting, primarily because the president is now considering as well shifting to MGCQ, or the least restrictive quarantine status, especially
Mm.
should stockpile reach 2 million. Is this a necessary immediate step to take, or should they proceed with caution?
Well, I think the president is well briefed, and that's why I think he also like disagreed to go into the MGCQ in here on today, supposedly today, essentially because I think he understands that up to today we have been able to manage the cases, but we are not been able to bring it down to like significant levels, because we are flat from November, right, and we are seeing some upticks again. So you really want to have like a combination of the vaccine and the lowering of the number of cases, daily cases. So it's really will boil down to way of doing the protocols. And to people, that's also what, you know, uh, can put people out of the street, because when they see people not wearing mask, or are very complacent already, then, you know, it like causes some kind of apprehension or personal concern that, you know, we are still really challenged by the possibility of cases increasing again.
All right, but what's interesting here for me at least is that when you try to dissect what the president said, 2 million vaccines is the threshold that he's setting in order for him to consider easing
Mm.
restrictions. Isn't that quite small? Is that enough to actually stoke confidence here?
Well, I think underlying, I mean, we were just second guessing what the president is thinking, but probably he's saying also that, you know, I'm going to do it, but at the same time, you make sure that the protocols are clearer, implemented well. And, you know, one of the things you have seen here is that they're trying to like come up with a single, you know, the domestic travel protocols, you know, something like that. Because I think the reason really why we have been unable to bring down the cases in many places, because we have different ways of doing the same thing.
Mhm.
And you know, even if the vaccines are there, I would second guess it, like a subtle way of saying, you know, do it and do it well, something like that from the
All right.
president.
Now, given all that, when do you see recovery happening here for the country, economically speaking, of course? And are there any particular sectors here which you deem will be bright spots for the year?
Well, we are looking at the second quarter, as you know, we are probably getting out of the recession by the second quarter by the sheer uh, deep decline last year. So, you know,
Mhm.
by rebound, by base effect, we will go out of the recession. However, I'm not seeing it like jumping the way people are expecting it, because
Do you have a
as we
number in
can
mind,
see.
sir?
Oh, well, we are looking at actually our full year estimate is conservatively at 3% growth this
Mhm.
year, because even with the vaccine rollout, and even with again, it is basing it on the protocols not being organized, not being unified, you know. And because of that, you will have like localized lockdowns here and there, and that will affect the free flow of goods and services,
Mhm.
and, you know, can hamper full recovery. So that's what we are seeing.
All right, and then lastly, of course, we are expecting February inflation figures to come in. You have a
Mhm.
Business World poll yielding a median estimate of 4.8%. That's going to be a 26-month high here. But you yourself, you're expecting a more elevated level at 5.1%. What brought you there, sir?
Well, base effect was one, and
Mm,
then you add in what we are seeing right now in terms of the response to the supply chokes. This is really a supply problem,
mhm,
and you really have to address that supply choke. Unfortunately, you don't make food out of nothing. So you really have to, you know, there is like challenges along the way. Importing it or distributing it will be a challenge. So we're seeing it at that point, still elevated. And even the central bank governor himself said that it will last maybe until the third quarter, which is what we are seeing as well. So the challenge basically is it's not monetary driven, it is
mhm.
supply choke. Then you have to address the supply choke. Unfortunately, the supply choke cannot be addressed that quickly, so you really have to, you know, work on the mechanisms to ensure that there is the free flow of particularly food products, because that's where the major inflation is coming from. And also you add the oil prices. No, there are some upticks that we have seen in the last few weeks, although it may not necessarily be like the biggest push, or the one that would push inflation higher. It is still our own supply chokes.
All right. Once again, of course, a number of economists already pointing to the fact that it really is a supply issue at this stage. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Ateneo Economics Professor, Professor Alvin Ang. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And those are the biggest news this trading day, March 1st, 2021. Catch Business World live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News.